Welcome, listeners and viewers, to the long-awaited Season 2 of Half Haunted. I am your host, Candi, and I'm here with my fabulous co-host, Raji. This season is about urban legends, lore, cemeteries, famous haunted places, and serial killers. Welcome to the Serial Killer Series, Part 1, Women Serial Killer. I'm with my co-host, Raji Clark. Welcome, Raji.
Hello. How are you?
Good.
Good.
Are you ready to dive into the serial killers of women this time? These women here are, I've never heard of some of these people. So I'm trying to dive into people that I've never heard of before that are serial killers.
And of course, America has the largest amount of serial killers out of everybody in the world.
Right.
Let's
So,
see to treat people a little bit better because this is ridiculous. But as you were
right.
Mhm.
So let's tap into it.
Okay.
So part 1, 6 women serial killers. First off, she resided in Chicago, but she was a Polish-American serial killer. Her name is Tilly Tillman. She was born in 1876, and she died November 20th, 1936. She operated in Chicago. According to reports, she had precognitive dreams that accurately predicted the death of her victims. In reality, she was orchestrating those deaths.
Yeah.
I am. Frank's gonna die tomorrow at 2 p.m. Yeah. Anyway, biography. She was born in Poland, immigrated to the United States as an infant with her parents. She married her first husband, Joseph. I'm not going to try to pronounce that last name.
Yeah.
1895. He died, shocker, from a brief illness in 1914, with a death certificate attributing the cause to heart trouble. She remarried shortly after to Joseph, who also died soon after, did a boyfriend who previously jilted her. Do you see a pattern here?
Was she crushing cherry seeds?
Something.
Anyway.
She was it. The murder charge that will ultimately lead to her trial involved her third husband, Frank. After he fell ill in their apartment at 924 North Winchester, where she had previously lived with a boyfriend using the name Myers, she began to inform neighbors that Frank would not live long.
Oh, wow.
She mocked him directly, greeting him each morning with phrases like, "It won't be long now. You'll be dying soon," while joking with the neighbors that he had 2 inches to live. Imagine that. You're in the front porch. Like, bitch, you only got 2 inches to live. Won't be long now. Yeah.
Okay.
So, during his illness, she even knitted a morning hat, which she later wore to her trial, and asked the landlady for permission to store a discounted coffin that she had found for sale in the basement. Such behavior contributed to the belief that she predicted the death.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah. So, in 1921, following Frank's death, Tilly married a man named Joseph and resided with him at 1450 Tell Place, now 1453 Thomas Street. When he became ill, shocker, doctors suspected arsenic poisoning, which was later confirmed. Tilly was arrested and reportedly told the arresting officer, the next one I want to cook a dinner is for you. No thanks. I'll pass. That's a hard pass, sorry.
Yeah.
Sorry, Miss Tilly. I'm not eating nothing from you. I'm not taking a drink from you. I'm good. Thank you. So the investigation, right? Clearly this lady's off her rocker, right? The bodies of Tilly's previous husbands were subsequently exhumed and found to have lethal doses of arsenic. Although the surrounding soil showed no contamination, police also arrested her cousin Nellie. Tilly allegedly confided to Nellie that she was tired of her husband's fate, to which Nellie suggested divorce. Tilly replied, "I will get rid of him some other way," then claimed that Nellie had given her a goodly portion of poison known as rough on rent. Oh my.
He just felt like killing.
She's like, don't forget about leaving somebody, just kill them all. Jesus. Following Killick's arrest, it emerged that several relatives and neighbors of both women had died under suspicious circumstances. Two neighbors whom Tilly had quarreled with became gravely ill after consuming candy given by her. A dog that frequently annoyed her at the Winchester Street home also died from arsenic poisoning. Numerous cousins and relatives of Tilly and Nellie felt seriously ill shortly after dining at Tilly's house. In total, there were 20 suspected victims of 14 who had died. So it didn't matter if you were her lover, her husband, her best friend.
You were breathing.
Yeah, she didn't care.
No.
The media began referring to Tilly as not only as a solitary murderer, but also as the high priestess of a Bluebeard clique operating in Chicago's Little Poland neighborhood. The other women from the area were arrested and later released. Joseph Killick managed to survive but remained hospitalized for more than 3 months. It was revealed that Killick had taken out life insurance policies on her husband,
Wow.
from which she profited significantly. March 1923, Killick was convicted of murdering Frank, her third known husband. Reporters noted that, unlike many husband killers she had previously acquitted in Chicago courts, Killick was not considered beautiful or charming. Rather, she was described as a squat woman who spoke only broken English, despite having lived in the country since childhood. She was sentenced to life in prison, marking the most severe sentence imposed on a woman in Cook County at the time. Nellie was later acquitted, and after spending a year behind bars during her lengthy trial, Killick often taunted her in prison, and at one point convincing her that she was about to be taken out for execution.
Wow.
Killick died in prison at Joliet Correctional Center on November 20th, 1936, and was buried at the Bohemian National Cemetery in Chicago. And you see her, I sent you the picture, right? And I'll post a picture of what she looks like.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Poor thing.
Mm-hmm.
She had issues.
Yeah, I don't know why he's killing off people. Weird.
Mm-hmm.
So, next one is Amy Dugan, sister Archer Gilligan. She was a nursing home owner and serial killer from Connecticut. She is believed to have murdered at least 5 individuals by administering poison. There are suspicions that Archer Gilligan may have been involved in additional deaths, as authorities recorded 48 fatalities at her facility, known as Archer Home for the Elderly and Infirm. This case garnered significant media attention during its time and has been cited as a source of the inspiration for the play Arsenic and Old Lace.
Wow.
Yep. I remember that. My grandma used to watch that show or that movie. Early Life and Marriages. We'll call her Amy for short because I don't want to repeat her whole name.
Mm-hmm.
She was born Halloween 1873 to James and Mary in Milton, Connecticut. She was 8 of 10 children. She attended school. In 1897, Amy married James Archer. The couple welcomed a daughter named Mary Archer in December of that same year. The Archers began a caregiving journey in 1901 when they were hired to care for John Seymour, an elderly widower moving into his home in Newington, Connecticut. Upon Seymour's death in 1904, his heirs transformed the residence into a boarding house for the elderly. The Archers remained on to provide care for a fee, paying rent to the Seymour's family. They operated the boarding house as Sister Amy's nursing home for the elderly. In 1907, the Seymour's heirs decided to sell the property. The Archers then relocated to Windsor, Connecticut, using their savings to purchase a residence on Prospect Street, which they soon converted into a business known as the Archer Home for the Elderly and Infirm. James Archer passed away in 1910, apparently of natural causes, with the official cause of death listed as Bright disease, a term used for various kidney conditions. Notably, Amy had taken out an insurance policy on him just weeks prior to his death, providing her financial means to continue running the Archer home. Well. In 1913, Amy married Michael Gilligan, a widower with 4 adult sons, who was thought to be wealthy and interested in both her and investing in a nursing home. Tragically, Michael died on February 20th, 1914, just 3 months into their marriage. His death was attributed to an acute villus attack, severe indigestion. However, he left behind, which bequeathed his entire estate to Amy, was later revealed to be a forgery, written in a style matching Amy's own handwriting.
Wow.
So the murders. Between 1907 and 1917, a total of 60 deaths occurred at the Archer home. The relatives of the residents began to suspect foul play as they noted an alarming number of fatalities. While the 12 residents died between 1907 and 1910, 48 deaths occurred between 1911 and 1916, which one was Franklin R. Andrews, a seemingly healthy man who died suddenly on May 29, 1914, a day after gardening. His death was officially attributed to gastric ulcer. Andrews' siblings, including Nellie Pierce, discovered letters that indicating that Amy had pressured their brother for money, suggesting a troubling pattern where her clients died shortly after giving her a large sum. As suspicious deaths continued, Nellie Pierce reported her concerns to the local district attorney, but her warnings were largely ignored. Frustrated, she shared her story with the Hartford Courant, leading to a series of articles published starting May 9, 1916, that labeled the facility a murder factory. Subsequently, the police initiated a serious investigation which lasted nearly a year. The bodies of Gilligan, Andrews, and 3 other boarders were exhumed, revealing that they all died from poisoning, either through arsenic or strychnine.
Yeah.
That stuff's dangerous. Local merchants testified that Amy had brought large quantities of arsenic under the guise of needing it to kill rats. Investigators discovered the will from Gilligan was forgery. So, M. Williams Phillips, the author of The Devil's Rooming House, explained that while Amy purchased arsenic for pest control, it became clear she did not solely acquire all of it for arsenic use to poison her victims. Some patients and their physicians signed off on purchasing it as well. As investigation progressed, the focus shifted back to Amy after inconsistency regarding her purchases were highlighted. Once evidence surfaced proving Amy had sent her patients to pharmacies to buy arsenic, authorities arrested and convicted her. She got caught. Trials. Amy was arrested and charged with murder on 5 accounts, but her attorney successfully reduced the charges to a single count for the murder of Franklin Andrews. On June 18, 1917, a jury found her guilty and sentenced her to death. She appealed the verdict and was granted a new trial in 1919, which she pleaded insanity. Her daughter, Mary Archer, testified that Amy had an addiction to morphine. Despite this defense, Amy was found guilty of murder, although this time she received a life sentence instead of the death penalty. Death. In 1924, Amy was declared temporarily insane and was transferred to Connecticut Hospital for the Insane in Middletown, where she remained until her death in 1962. So that's where the arsenic and old lace came from with this lady.
Wow.
A little bit of poison here, a little bit of rat-tat-tat there, a little bit here, a little bit there.
Yeah.
That was crazy.
Yeah. Yeah.
These women are nuts. All right, this one is Marjorie Velma Barfield. She's October 29th, 1932 to November 2nd, 1984, American serial killer. She's convicted of one murder, but later confessed to 6. She was the first woman in the United States to be executed following the 1976 reinstatement of the capital punishment, and the first since 1962 to be executed by lethal injection. So, long story short, she's born in North Carolina, raised in Fayetteville. Her father was physically abusive. Her mother did not intervene. You know, fortunately, a lot of stories are like that for a lot of people. She escaped by marrying Thomas Burke in 1949. They had 2 children. They appeared to be happy. He went a hysterectomy, developed back pain, leading to behavior changes and subsequent drug addiction. So she had an addiction to drugs. She began to drink. That escalated to arguments. April 4th, 1969. She had passed out. Barfield took the children, let me rewind that. As Burke began to drink, Barfield's complaints escalated into bitter arguments. On April 4th, 1969, after Burke had passed out, Barfield took the children and left the house. Upon their return, they found their home burned and Burke dead. In 1970, Barfield married a widower named Jennings Barfield, but he died less than a year later on March 22nd, 1971, due to heart complications.
Mm-hmm.
In 1974, Barfield's mother, Lillian, exhibited severe symptoms of diarrhea, vomiting, and nausea. I wonder what those could have been from, but recovered shortly thereafter. However, during the Christmas season of that year, Bullard fell ill again with the same symptoms and tragically died in the hospital hours after being admitted on December 30th, 1974. In 1979, Barfield was convicted on 7 counts of writing bad checks and sentenced to 6 months in prison, of which 3 she served. And in 1976, she began caring for the elderly.
Correction, 1975, not 1979.
So she began caring for the elderly, working for Montgomery and Dolly Edwards in Lumberton, North Carolina. Montgomery fell ill and died on January 29, 1977. Just over a month later, Dolly exhibited similar symptoms and died on March 1st. Barfield later confessed to murdering her.
Wow.
Jesus. This lady is nuts. Well,
right.
I'm not going to no barbecue. I'm not going to no buffet. I'm not going to no cookout, no person's home. I'm not eating nothing nobody cooked except for my mom's food. Nothing, because you never know. You know what I mean? You don't know what people are going to put in your food.
I mean, especially if you carry the attitude like many do in a restaurant. Like, has no one ever seen the movie Waiting?
Right.
I try to mind my cues, and if I don't like something, I please try to do it with a smile because, Go on. Yeah.
Anyway, the following year, Barfield worked as a caregiver for 76-year-old Record Lee, who had broken her leg. On June 4, 1977, Lee's husband, John Henry, developed severe stomach and chest pains, accompanied by vomiting and diarrhea, and subsequently died. Barfield confessed to his murder as well. Another victim, Roland Stewart Taylor, Barfield's boyfriend and relative of Dolly Edwards, fearing he might discover her check forgery, Barfield mixed arsenic-based rat poison into his beer and tea. Taylor died February 3, 1978, where Barfield claimed to be nursing him back to health. An autopsy revealed arsenic was in his system. After her arrest, the body of Jennings Barfield was exhumed and found to contain traces of arsenic, which Barfield denied having administered. Though she confessed to murdering Lillian Bullard, Dolly Edwards, and John Henry Lee, she was only tried and convicted for the murder of Taylor. Jonathan Byrd, a singer-songwriter, is the grandson of Jennings Barfield and his first wife. His song Velma from the album Wildflowers provides a personal account of the murders and the ensuing investigation. Now here's the juicy part. Now, the imprisonment and execution. Barfield was imprisoned at the Central Prison in Raleigh, North Carolina, in a section designated for escape-prone and the mentally ill inmates. There was no specific area for women on death row at that time. She was the only female facing death penalty in the state. A dedicated death row unit for women was later established at North Carolina Correctional Institute for Women. During her time on death row, Barfield became a devout Christian, dedicating her final years to ministering fellow inmates, which earned her praise from Billy Graham.
Really? Now go on.
Her involvement in Christian ministry led to efforts to obtain a commute of her sentence to life in prison. Her efforts
Commutation
of her sentence.
Yes.
Yeah, commutation of her sentence to life imprisonment. A second base for her appeal came from the testimony of Dorothy Otnow Lewis, a professor for psychiatry at New York University School of Medicine and an expert on violent behavior. She claimed that Barfield suffered from dissociative identity disorder and that she had communicated with Barfield's alternate personality, Billy, who alleged that Velma had been a victim of sexual abuse and that had killed her abuser. The judge, however, was not convinced, reportedly stating one of them did it and I don't care which one. Barfield's appeal was denied in federal court, and she directed her attorneys to abandon any further appeal to the United States Supreme Court. Barfield was executed November 2nd, 1984 in Central Prison. Just before her execution, she issued a statement. I know that everybody has gone through a lot of pain, all the families connected, and I am sorry. I want to thank everybody who have been supporting me all these 6 years. Her last meal she chose cheese doodles, Coca-Cola. Barfield was buried in a small rural cemetery in North Carolina near her first husband, Thomas. Drugs are bad, okay?
Okay. Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
No.
Oh, these people, I don't know, man. It's weird.
I mean, are you that bored? I mean, what was the pattern with all these people? What is your reasoning? Yeah.
So this next lady, I happened to watch some about serial killers last night, and this next one, I saw a snippet on her, and she's actually from New Mexico. I went to school in Albuquerque.
I hope you tell her to do it, but how do you pronounce her last name?
Buenoano, it's good. It's like Goodyear. Bueno is good, and Ano. But that's not her original name. She changed her name.
Okay.
But she's born as wealthy. Okay, this next lady is Judas and Anna Lou Judy Buenoano. We're just going to call her Judy throughout this segment here. She was born April 4th, 1943, and died March 30th, 1998. She was an American female serial killer executed in Florida for the 1971 murder of her first husband, James Goodyear. She was convicted of 1980 murder of her son, Michael Buenoano, and for the attempted murder of her boyfriend, John Gentry, in 1983. Judy is suspected in the 1970 death of another boyfriend, Bobby Joe Morris, in Colorado. However, by the time authorities linked her to Morris, she'd already been sentenced to death in Florida. She's also believed to have been involved in 1974 murder in Alabama and the 1980 death of yet another boyfriend, Gerald. Following her arrest, Dorset's body was exhumed and examined for signs of arsenic poisoning. However, no charges were filed in that case. Judy was the first woman executed in Florida since 1848 and the first woman to be electrocuted in the United States since 1976. So her early life says she was born in Texas, but she went to Roswell. She was the third of four siblings. Her mother's death when she was 4. Her and her brother Robert were sent to live with their grandparents, and then her father later remarried and had 2 sons of their own. So they moved in with the stepfamily in Roswell, New Mexico, and she basically was treated like a wicked step, like the Cinderella type, wicked stepsister. And then she endured abuse from the father and the stepmother. They starved her, forced her to work as a servant. At the age of 14, she spent 2 months in jail, or 2 months in juvenile detention for attacking her father and stepmother and their 2 stepbrothers. She went to reform school. She graduated in 1960. She became a nursing assistant. Basically, she became a nurse too. She had an illegitimate son named Michael the following year. Judy married James Goodyear. That's where her last name, Buenoano, comes from, because that's the Spanish version of Goodyear. A sergeant in the United States Air Force who died September 16, 1971 in Florida. Initially, his death was attributed to natural causes. 2 years later, she moved in with Bobby Joe Morris, a resident of Trinidad, Colorado, who died of poisoning in January of 1978. Later that year, she changed her last name to Buenoano, a corrupted Spanish term for Goodyear. So, in 1979, Buenoano's son Michael fell severely ill, displaying symptoms including paraplegia. On May 13th, she took him out on a canoe. When the canoe capsized, Michael drowned without a life jacket while hindered by his arm and leg braces. Followed by his death, Buenoano opened a beauty salon. He took him out in a canoe, flipped over the canoe, knowing he couldn't swim because he's paraplegic, and let him drown.
Oh my God.
Yeah, your own son, imagine that.
Nasty.
Bastards. In 1983, while in a relationship with John Gentry, he suffered severe injuries when his car exploded in Florida. As Gentry was recovering, police uncovered several inconsistencies with Judy's background, prompting further investigation. Authorities discovered that the vitamin pills she had been giving Gentry contained arsenic and formaldehyde. Examinations of Michael Goodyear, James Goodyear, and Bobby Joe Morris revealed that all 3 had been poisoned with arsenic. Both James Goodyear and Bobby Joe Morris confirmed all have died from arsenic poisoning. Judy collected substantial insurance payouts from each death, and was arrested in 1983 on multiple charges. So, conviction, imprisonment, and execution. In 1984, Judy was convicted of the murder of her son Michael and attempted murder of Gentry, receiving a 12-year sentence for the latter and a life sentence for her son's murder. In 1985, she was convicted of the murder for her first husband, James, and sentenced to death. She was also convicted on multiple counts of grand theft related to insurance fraud and is suspected of committing acts of arson for the same purpose. She was held on death row in Broward Correctional Institution for Women within the Florida Department of Corrections, and on March 30th, 1998, Judy was executed in the electric chair at the Florida State Prison. Her last meal included steamed broccoli, asparagus, tomatoes, strawberries, and hot tea with lemon. When she asked if she had any final words, Judy replied, "No, sir." Her body was cremated. So Judy was the first woman executed in Florida since 1848 and the first woman in the United States to be electrocuted since 1976.
Wow.
She might have been in the same prison that Elaine Warnos was in, right? Wasn't Elaine Warnos in Florida? Yeah. It might have been like buddy buddies, maybe. I don't know. I don't know. Maybe not. Maybe she maybe when was Elaine Wuornos in prison? Wasn't she in prison like all the same time, maybe later? I don't know.
Carol Mary Bundy, August 26, 42 to December 9, 2003. And this is wild because none of these people, I have never heard of any of these people before. So this is a good job you did because no clue. I
Yeah,
know
I wanted to do
y'all
people
know
that
it, but that's not the right one.
right.
All right.
I didn't want to do your standard,
That's
ones we knew.
good. Because who knew? You only hear the ones that people usually talk about that end up on the news and so forth. But these people here, no.
Yeah.
Okay. Carol Mary Bundy was an American double murderer and suspected serial killer. Bundy and Doug Clark became collectively known as the Sunset Strip Killers after being convicted of a series of lust murder. You throwing things around over there?
Yeah, keep going. I'm fine. I just
Bundy,
lost my.
uh, Bundy had a troubled childhood, growing up with both her parents as abusive alcoholics. Her mother passed away when Bundy was a child, and her father began sexually abusing her at age 11. After remarrying, raised her in various foster homes. At age 7, Bundy married a man who was 56 years old. Ew, she had is 56 years old. By the time Bundy met Doug Clark at the age of 37, she had recently escaped a third marriage to an abusive spouse with whom she had 2 young sons. She begun an affair with the apartment complex manager, trying to probably cut down that rent, huh? Anyway, oh my goodness.
To cut down the rent. Jesus.
She began an affair with her apartment complex manager, a part-time country singer named Jack Murray, and even attempted to bribe Murray's wife to leave him. After Murray's wife forced him to evict Bundy, she continued to frequently appear at venues where he performed. It was at a bar named Little Nashville in 1980 during one of those performances that she first met Clark. The two quickly moved in together and discovered they had shared dark sexual fantasies. So, we're doing some murdering. On August 9, 1980, the decomposed body of John Robert Murray, 45, was discovered in a van parked just blocks from his home in Van Nuys. Murray had suffered stab wounds to the chest and was decapitated, with his head never being found. 2 days later,
Jeez.
she confessed to police that she had shot her lover, Jack Murray, with a chrome Raven gun 5 days prior to the discovery of his body. March 3, 1981, investigators found the incomplete skeleton of an unidentified young woman buried in a shallow stream bed near Bouquet Reservoir. Although only a few bones were recovered, the skull with a bullet hole was found. The nature of the gunshot wound matched the description of a prostitute whom Clark and Bundy claimed to have picked up according to their testimony. Clark stated that Bundy had shot the young woman in the head, stripped her naked, and instructed him to drive to Green Valley, where they disposed of the body. He also claimed that Bundy fondled the dying victim during the journey. It was later revealed that Bundy confided in a fellow nurse about her involvement in the murders of Murray and the unidentified woman, although she alleged that Clark had fired the fatal shot. Bundy was arrested on August 11, 1980 at her home in Burbank, with Clark being arrested on the same day. Two days later, she was arraigned for the murder of John Robert Murray and held without bail. Sealed court documents from a session on September 18th of that year indicated that Bundy killed to prevent him from reporting her to the authorities after him about her roommate Douglas Clark being involved in the Sunset murders. She also stated that she had to decapitate him to avoid having bullets traced back to her. Co-workers testified that Bundy confessed to being present during the murder of a young woman and assisted in disposing of her body afterward. On May 2, 1983, Bundy unexpectedly pleaded guilty in Los Angeles County Superior Court to the murders of Murray and the unidentified woman whose skeleton was found in 1981. This surprised prosecutors as Bundy had initially pleaded not guilty and claimed insanity. Although no plea bargain was made, her guilty plea meant that the district attorney could not establish special circumstances required for a life sentence without parole. Prosecutors had already agreed to remove the death penalty in exchange for Bundy's testimony against Clark during his trial. Clark was sentenced to death but died of natural causes on death row on October 11, 2020. Whoa! 2023. Whoa! On May 31st, 1983, Bundy was sentenced to 52 years to life, 27 years to life for the murder of Murray, and an additional 25 years to life to be served consecutively, blah, 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 for her involvement in the death of the unidentified woman. Bundy passed away from heart failure in prison at the Central California Women's Facility, December 9, 2003, at the age of 61. That is crazy. You know, because growing up, but it's men. I never heard, even the ones that have died since the 80s. I was around in the 80s, of course. All I ever heard about was like the Son of Sam, and who was the one that was the clown who liked to paint clowns?
John Wayne Gacy.
And then the brothers. There was
Menendez?
The what? No.
Not.
This is moons ago. There were two brothers. I think they were from Ohio that were serial killing. But seriously, if it wasn't for the movie Monster, right? Was it Charlize Theron? I would have never known there was women serial killers, except for, I can't remember her. Lizzie Borden, right?
Yeah.
Everybody trips, but still, I never knew.
So we're going to do one last one. So Linda Laura Hazzard, December 18th, 1867 to June 24th, 1938, nicknamed the Starvation Doctor, was an American quack swindler and convicted serial killer noted for her promotion of fasting and pummeling and hours of long enemas as treatment. It's good. Anyway, she was, we'll call her Linda. She was born in Minnesota, the oldest of 7 children. She did not possess an actual medical degree. She was allowed to practice, hold on a minute. Although Linda did not possess a medical degree, she was allowed to practice medicine in the state of Washington due to a loophole that permitted some practitioners of alternative medicine to operate without a formal degree. In her book, The Science of Fasting, she claimed to have studied under Edward Hooker Dewey, MD, a prominent advocate for fasting therapy. So Linda developed a fasting regimen that she touted as a cure-all for various illnesses, argued that eliminating toxins causing bodily imbalances. Throughout her career, she authored 3 books in which presented her scientific basis for fasting and its ability to heal diseases. The first of these books were Fasting for the Cure of Disease, was published in 1908, followed by Diet and Disease and Systematic Cleansing in 1917. A revised and expanded edition of her first book, retitled Fasting, An Ancient and Modern Key to Health, was released in 1927. Linda was an established sanitarium called Hazard Wilderness Heights in Oala, Washington, where patients could undergo fasting for days, weeks, or even months on a limited diet consisting mainly of tomato and asparagus juice, with occasional servings of orange juice. While some patients survived and publicly praised Linda's methods, several others died under her care. Well, if you're only having tomato juice and asparagus juice and occasional orange juice, you're
allergic to some vitamins, yeah.
What if you're allergic to orange juice or oranges? You know what I mean?
Yeah, true. Yeah.
Linda attributed these deaths to undisclosed or previous undiagnosed illnesses such as cancer or cirrhosis of the liver, while her critics argued that the patients succumbed to starvation. Local residents referred to her as sanitarium as Starvation Heights. Let's go to Starvation Heights. Oh my God. We're going to Starvation Heights.
Yeah.
Come on, Grandpa, let's go to Starvation Heights. We're taking you to Starvation Heights. You might shut up.
Yeah.
Sorry, I digress too much. In 1912, Linda was convicted of manslaughter in connection with the death of Claire Williamson, a wealthy British woman who weighed less than 50 pounds at the time of her death. During the trial, it was revealed that Linda had forged Williamson's will and stolen most of her possessions. Williamson's sister, Dorothea, also went under treatment, and it is said that her survival was due to a family friend's timely intervention in removing her from Starvation Heights. Allegedly, one of the sisters managed to send a telegram to alert their governess in Australia, but Claire had already passed away by the time it arrived. Dorothea was too weak to leave on her own, and weighing less than 60 pounds, later testified against Linda during the trial. Hazzard received a sentence ranging from 2 to 20 years in prison, which she served at the Washington State Penitentiary in Walla Walla. She was paroled on December 26, 1915, after serving 2 years, and was granted a full pardon a year later by Governor Ernest Lister following her release. Linda and her husband Samuel Hazzard relocated to New Zealand, where she worked as a, you guessed it, dietitian and osteopath until 1920. Well, in 1917, a newspaper reported that Linda had held a practicing certificate from Washington Medical State Board. However, because she was using the title doctor, she was charged in Auckland under Medical Practitioners Act for practicing without a, license. She was found guilty and fined, I guess, £5 is what they call it over there in England. It's the U.S. equivalent of $462 in 2014. Later, 3 years later, she returned to Owala and opened a new sanitarium, publicly referred to as the School of Health. Following the revocation of her medical license, she continued to supervise fasting treatments until the sanitarium burned down in 1935, and it was never reconstructed. So, you want to know how she died? So, Linda died of starvation in 1938 while attempting to pursue a fasting cure for herself. So she died by fasting. Imagine that, right?
Right. I mean,
Karma.
yeah.
Karma. But Starvation Heights? I mean, come on. Like, that's hilarious. I mean, God rest those souls. I mean, they didn't deserve that. But I mean,
No,
come
they
on now.
didn't. But I mean, that's just a sad name. I see there's a book about it by some guy because they're talking about two sisters or whatever, two friends that went over there.
Yeah.
Yeah. I can't deal with people wailing and in pain, especially people going, I'm hungry, feed me. And here
Have a teaspoon of tomato juice. I'm doing the lean.
Bacon's the greatest thing Taste ever had in their life, and this is what you do. It's just beyond me. I
can see, fasting like a 16-8 thing I used to do, but you don't do it for months and
No, you
eat
don't.
for 8 hours. You eat for 8 hours, but you don't starve yourself. Jesus, man.
No.
And I don't understand how she was able to tell people what to do, and she didn't even have a medical license. Like, that's crazy. I guess that's why she's called a quack. And then this funny shit is the local residents referred her sanitarium as a Starvation Heights. You would have had to fill day back.
Phil. If I don't want to be anywhere near that, does not sound like a good place to live. Lettuce, tomatoes, and fruits, or whatever she was giving them back then, probably tasted a whole lot better than what we got going on now.
Exactly. But yeah, that's the serial killer. Some of these people are nuts, man. I don't even get it.
They're all nuts. There's just too many of them.
And even when I was doing my research, a lot of these women, there's a lot more women serial killers, but a lot of them are like nurses, man. A lot of them are like nurses, healthcare people.
yeah, they know that they can get away with things. It can just be
People off for no reason.
yeah, yeah,
Jesus, man. So I'm like, what are you giving me? What do you? I don't need to take anything. I don't need to take. You know what I mean? Like, it's crazy. But there's gonna be more serial killers. It's more gonna be the unknown ones. So
yeah.
there's gonna be a couple more episodes on the serial killer part. But this was, I thought these ladies were quite interesting. So thank you for joining me on co-hosting the crazy nuttiness of the female serial killers. So I appreciate it.
That's right.
All right.
Everybody have a good day.
Toodles!
Bye.
Serial killer, serial killer, serial killer.
Serious. Let me know
If you enjoyed our podcast, let us know by giving us a rating on Spotify, Apple, and iHeartRadio. If you enjoyed our video podcast on YouTube, let us know by leaving a comment. We would greatly appreciate it. As always, stay half haunted.